how many people in small business and in ministry are still not necessarily trying to acclimate themselves to an online world? They're still trying to process, I need to go into an online world. And that's a challenge for me when I've been in this space for 26 years. Like, to me, in my world, if you're not running something online, you're missing out on the greatest opportunity out there. I mean, I personally, even if I'm talking to people in ministry, I don't believe you're going to see a billion soul harvest unless it's done online. It ain't going to happen, in my opinion. There is a thick presence of discouragement, apathy, why bother right now, filtering its way as well through business and in our society. The thing you have to understand, though, is that messages flow from within the business and media realm. And so when you stepped into doing a business online, you stepped into a different realm than you may have ever been accustomed to before. And I am not somebody who builds my business in a combative way, being aware of spiritual warfare and being combative. But I will tell you, if you do not take into consideration that you have an enemy and he wants you silenced, he wants you confused, he wants you apathetic, and he constantly wants you to try starting something new and it never being good enough. If you're not aware of that, you're missing out so much. Because why would I say you're missing out? Because if you're not aware that there's an enemy out there, you won't have empathy for people who are struggling. Even talking to 70 and 80-year-olds, they're telling me, we've never seen anything like this. And yet I'm hearing over and over and over again, with all the businesses shutting off offline, shutting their doors and everything offline, there's so many people who are succeeding online. And you have to step into that energy of expectation. But that doesn't mean that any business you do online is actually going to succeed. It's not. It's not. This is a time more than ever for you to consider whether or not what you're marketing and selling, you should actually be marketing and selling. And I can't wait for you to hear the podcast next week with Ryan, because so many people are taught to chase their passion, and your passion will lead you to either bring something that you absolutely love to the marketplace because of how it's affected you or whatever, or it'll lead you to try to correct something in the marketplace in the event that you think like something's not being done the way it should be. Now, here's the thing. I don't believe passion's enough. I don't. And God didn't position me with that kind of mindset when I've sold over $200 million of the products. I have a mandate on my life, which enables me to do more than I ever could on my own. You may not hear this from a lot of leaders, and you might not want to hear it from me, but I'm going to tell you what, you need to know where you have been appointed and where you have been given authority. And here's what's interesting. A lot of times people think they're not spiritual enough, or maybe they don't read the Bible, or maybe, they don't really have a living, breathing relationship with God. So maybe that's not relevant. And that's not true in my book. Because I believe when you were knit in your mother's womb, no matter what relationship you have with your mother, even if you were adopted and living with another, none of that matters in your destiny. It'll influence some things, but it doesn't disannul or discredit when you were knit in your mother's womb. Before you took your first breath, God bent you in a specific way that if you would go in that way, you would accomplish more than you ever could on your own. And I never put myself in the business world so that I could just be another business trainer to teach another funnel, to teach another copywriting lessons. To tell you the truth, I get so sick of teaching strategy when I didn't get here by strategy. And that's hard for me because some people, I've got to teach strategy of some of the pieces that came very instinctively because of my assignment. But I believe with all of my heart, I will go to my grave believing that if you tap into what you have been called to do, you will have skill set that you are not trained for. You will have ability that will come instinctively so natural for you that your biggest fight will not be what is the correct strategy. Your biggest fight will be believing that you actually can do what God gave you to do and then going to do it. And if you get stuck in some academic, intellectual, philosophical, religious, strategic, secular business mindset of trying to understand all the little components of strategy, you will dismiss your anointing. And you could, if you're not careful, create one of the most devastating, difficult things you've ever lived through. How do I know this to be true? Because I got to step into the business world, and I ain't called to the mountain of religion where the Christian church and every other religion sits. And I'm called to go into the business world with supernatural ability. So there's going to be a whole school of people who think they don't need to do anything but pray. And that's cuckoo. Because you've got to understand the systems and strategies of the land. But I'm telling you that if you step into what God has given you, you are above the system and strategies of the land. The stuff that God gave me to create in the last 26 years, people are just trying to figure out now. The stuff that I had to peel my way through, pastors and leaders and family members and friends who thought I was completely off my freaking rocker and wanted me to validate myself and wanted me to prove myself and wanted me to show I knew what I was talking about and wanted to see my paychecks and wanted to see all this kind of stuff. When push came to shove, and I finally just said, really, F it. I've been doing this all these years without proving anything to anybody. Why the hell am I trying to prove to you what I know how to do when you haven't even figured out what God's called me to do? I hope you don't take me wrong. Okay. I don't want you to get me wrong. What I'm trying to tell you is if there has never been a time like now, it is time for you to step into faith because you walk by faith, my friend. You do not walk by sight. And I understand it's almost as if being a business trainer is like being a drug dealer right now. I've never seen so much corruption in all my life of people claiming to know how to do all kinds of stuff they've never done. Now, I won't claim to show you how to do stuff I've never done, but after you've been doing this for 26 years, you can figure out a lot of stuff. But I see people battling their identity as a business owner because they have promised that they can provide value for someone. They got there on anointing and they're trying to stay there on strategy. That's a word for somebody.